Hey there again. So today I'm just gonna try to make this as fast as possible because this is gonna be a lot of information. But I've been noticing that there's been a lot of Jayce Zoe comps that are being constantly played, or Zoe comps of some sorts, where you run into the common problem of the fact that you have a very short term and short range mage that do not necessarily perform well in the side lane. They either have very low pressure in terms of the 1v1 matchup that they're placed against, or they have actually struggled against shoving the wave all the way in, or the most common case scenario where you just group up mid and they just bleed farm. And in order to just see these minor regions and North America constantly fail at these, I just wanted to create a couple, like release a couple of those plans that are typically employed by LCK and LPL teams who are masters at this composition, and likely the reason why these minor regions are constantly playing these comps because they're most likely scrimming against these LPL and LCK teams and then getting their asses whooped by them. So the things to mainly avoid, the most important one is avoiding farm because you're overgrouping. You do not want to ARAM consistently, even though that is the end goal of the composition. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should start from the very beginning, and that is the major misconception that the North American teams had. And if you look at the DFM series, then we see that clear problem, especially when they're contesting the very last dragon. And again, another one is playing outside of the control zone, which means that you have to establish the zone and you have to have a very clear identification of what it is and where you have to do it. So we're going to simulate the fact that we're going to be on the red side, and this is going to be the Jayce top laner, and then M is going to be the Zoe. And then I'm going to give you three different instances of one where we're early to deployment, and then second, we're equal, which means that we're going to be arriving at the mid lane at the same exact time, and then late, where the enemy has reset first, and they're going to be able to touch they're going to be able to push us in first. So, with all those in mind, we're going to get into it. First is if we're early. This is actually one of the most standard ones, and this has been employed by LCK for the last 3 years, where you're going to see a 1-3-1 setup with Zoe bot and Jayce top. Zoe's entire job in this game is not necessarily shove out the wave; it's to catch whatever wave that is in here, or that is in here. If it is not over the side, then she does not need to come here at all, and then she'll be joining with the team and then temporarily or shadowing. But if there is a wave to be collected, which she normally should in a proper setup, then she's going to clear the wave and then create a neutral. And then while the neutral phase is happening, then Jayce is going to be able to just going to be able to shove the side out, because after R3 shoves in the mid wave first, because we are out of hands on it, then we're going to be hovering to the top side of the map and then making sure that this wave crashes. Then what happens is that the Jayce just pretty much converges with these four, and then it becomes a 0-4-1 scenario where the Zoe is going to be able to neutralize the wave and then join, and then it becomes a 5-0, and then after shoving the mid wave one more time with one of the enemies like busy occupied here or either here, then the river is clear, so you enter into the river, and then you create river vision, and then the choke points that you play around are this one, and then potentially this one. And it is very easy and simple. Now, there are multiple occasions and challenges that you run into potentially when you are in an even state where you don't particularly know whether or not you're going to be guaranteeing the push. Of course, this depends on the matchup and all that, but we're going to assume that the mid-wave contest is rather not too certain. And in this situation, what you have to immediately ultimately ask is, does the enemy top laner get shoved out by the Jayce by himself? If it is yes, then it is a very simple process. It is the 1-3-1 situation that we have discussed earlier. However, if it does not work, then what we need to think about is a 3-1-1 deployment where we need to de-emphasize the number of people that are going to the side. So what this means is that either the jungler or the support will be just trailing. Trailing means to not reveal themselves in vision. Most likely, walk right behind them, right outside of the enemy top laner's range, and then just constantly make sure that he has the backup that is required if there's a scrap about to happen. What's inevitably going to happen when you do this is that they're naturally going to get pushed against you. However, this is fine, because what this means is that if you're able to just if you're able to catch the wave, that you're either able to converge here and then still create match the numbers. Meanwhile, what's going to allow this to happen is that the Zoe is going to be catching the mid wave, either neutralizing the wave and then going here and then collecting the farm that the AD has left, so effectively shifting into a 4-1 situation. Or if the wave is not entirely needed, then she could also join the trailing as well. This could even go as extreme as a 4-1 situation. And then after the wave has been shoved in, then it is a similar scenario as before. Mid row, then these you just group up as five, and then crash the wave, and then you go to the river vision and then control river. Now this could quite happen quite commonly, especially when you are like constantly emphasizing itemization spikes, and there are often chances that you may be late, and as a result, you are guaranteed to lose the mid push. And in this situation, then this is where you just completely abandon mid wave entirely, and then you don't even have the luxury to assume that you're not you don't even have the luxury to send somebody down here, because you know for a fact that they could converge much faster. So this game of the AD carry trying to converge at the similar time, maybe 5 seconds off, is a very, very dangerous gamble in this case. So what do you do here? Then you just go for a 4-1 play. You go for a 4-1 play where the AD carry is the one that is staying mid, catching the farm, and then meanwhile these three people are just like slowly trailing the top laner, and then inevitably either you're going to be able to crash the wave or you're going to be able to kill the top laner, and then one of the champions immediately resets, most likely to Zoe, and then goes down here and it catches this wave that is being constantly shoved in, because we're under the assumption that the enemy are also equally playing the 3 minutes to the 2 minute sequence before the game, which is at the right before dragon, which typically means to maximize farm. Then afterwards these three converge mid, and it's going to be a 4-1 situation, and then with the top laner pinned or dead, we're going to be able to effectively shove these guys in. And then what naturally happens is that the mid laner that already shoved the wave in has to take a very long route to join this team, because the river is now ours. And then either, if given the time, if it is still if it's about like 30 seconds away, then Zoe could clear one additional wave, make it into a pushing wave, and then join them at the river, and then just contest the dragon, and then potentially have a wave to play around after the sequence if you wish to lengthen it that much. Or if the time doesn't allow for it, then you could just immediately collect the wave and then enter into the river as well. Now, these sequences are all revolving around the fact that you're properly deploying the numbers, and unless it is an extreme scenario where you are, like when you're late to mid deployment, where you immediately need somebody to hover to the top side of the map and create a cross map crash that is essentially important to make sure that you have a numbers advantage on the bot side, that the Zoe constantly gets the farm. If you're constantly ARAMing and then you're resetting in 5ing mid, then these situations will not happen. And what this will usually lead to by the 4th dragon is that the Zoe is going to be a half an item behind, which could potentially be catastrophic for the game.